Today, I'm going to break down 4 things women desperately want you to do, but will rarely, if ever, tell you directly. These aren't tactics. These aren't tricks you pull out at a bar. They're rooted in emotional psychology, attachment theory, and the actual mechanics of how desire works. And once you understand them, everything shifts. By the end of this video, you'll understand why certain behaviors create emotional pull while others quietly kill it. You'll see why logic often fails spectacularly in relationships and what actually moves the needle when it comes to desire, connection, and long-term attraction. This isn't my opinion. This isn't what I think sounds good. This is based on attachment theory, evolutionary psychology, behavioral science, and thousands of hours observing what actually works in real-world dynamics between men and women. I've studied this. I've lived it. I've watched it play out in countless relationships. And if you stay until the end, I'll share the one thing that separates men who maintain attraction long-term from those who unintentionally sabotage it without ever knowing why. It's subtle. Most people miss it completely, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's begin. Here's where most men go wrong from the very beginning, but they try to solve problems logically. She's upset, fix it. She's stressed, offer solutions. She's distant, ask what's wrong over and over until you get a clear, actionable answer you can work with. And on paper, that makes perfect sense. It's rational. It's caring. It shows you're invested. But emotionally, it misses the mark completely. Because women don't just want you to solve the surface level issue. They're not bringing you a broken appliance to repair. They want to feel something deeper. They want to know that you're not rattled by their emotions, that you can hold space without needing to control the outcome, that you're grounded enough in yourself that her mood doesn't dictate yours or send you into problem-solving panic mode. Most men don't realize they're being tested emotionally in these moments, not consciously. She's not sitting there thinking, let me test him and see if he remains calm. Not maliciously, but tested nonetheless. Her emotional system is gauging whether you're solid or whether you're dependent on her being okay for you to feel okay. When you rush to fix her feelings, when you can't tolerate the discomfort of her being upset, you're communicating something she doesn't want to hear. That her emotions make you uncomfortable. That you need her to be calm, happy, and regulated so you can feel secure. And that's when attraction starts to leak. Slowly at first, then all at once, she wants you to stop trying to fix her and start being unshaken by her. Let me explain what's happening psychologically beneath the surface. When a woman expresses frustration, sadness, stress, or any intense emotion, she's not always looking for a solution. In fact, most of the time, she's not. She's testing whether you can remain emotionally solid while she's not. She's checking to see if you're a safe harbor or just another person who needs her to perform emotional stability. This goes back to something called emotional co-regulation. It's a concept in attachment theory. Women are on average more emotionally expressive than men. That's not weakness. It's not instability. It's how they process the world. They feel things intensely and they externalize that processing. But deep down there's a subconscious pull toward men who don't absorb that emotional energy and spiral with it. Men who can witness it, hold space for it, but not be destabilized by it. Think about it from an evolutionary lens. For thousands of years, women needed to know, is this man going to panic when things get hard? Is he going to crumble under pressure? Or is he going to stay grounded when the world around him is chaotic? If she's stressed and you immediately get anxious trying to fix it, running around offering solutions she didn't ask for, what does that communicate on a primal level? That you need her to be okay for you to be okay. That's codependency. That's emotional fragility masquerading as care. And codependency kills attraction every single time. But if she's upset and you can stay calm, truly calm, listen without agenda, and simply be with her in that moment without needing to change it, that creates safety. Real safety. The kind that makes her feel like she can let her guard down because you're not fragile. You're not going to collapse. You can handle her at her worst without making it about you. Here's what this looks like in practice. She comes home frustrated about work. Her boss undermined her in a meeting. A coworker took credit for her idea. She's venting. She's upset. Most guys immediately say, "What happened? Have you tried talking to your boss? Maybe you should send an email." You could escalate this to HR. "Do you want me to help you draft something?" They mean well, but they've just made it worse. Instead, try this. Look at her. Put your phone down. Let her speak. Don't interrupt with solutions. Don't minimize it. Don't try to logic her out of her feelings. And when she's done, say something like, "That sounds really frustrating. I get why you're upset." That's it. No advice unless she explicitly asks. No panic, no fixing, just presence. And here's what's wild. That presence, that calm, grounded witness. That's what she's actually craving, not the fix, not the solution. Your solidity, your ability to not be thrown off center by her emotional weather. She wants you to stop seeking her approval and start leading your own life. This one stings because it's the opposite of what most modern relationship advice teaches. We're told to be considerate, to check in, to make sure she's happy, to prioritize the relationship above all else. And yes, thoughtfulness matters. Partnership matters. But there's a line. And when you cross it, you stop being a partner and start being a passenger in your own life. Here's the psychological truth that nobody wants to admit. Attraction grows in the presence of autonomy. When you're constantly adjusting your schedule, your opinions, your energy, your goals to match hers, you're not being loving. You're being invisible. You're erasing yourself. And invisibility is not attractive. It's suffocating. Women are drawn to men who have a center, a purpose, a direction that exists independent of her validation. Not because she wants to be ignored or sidelined, but because she wants to feel like she's choosing to be part of something solid, not holding it together with duct tape and emotional labor. This connects to a concept in psychology called differentiation. It's the ability to maintain your sense of self while being emotionally connected to another person. Low differentiation looks like merging, losing yourself, becoming whatever you think she wants. High differentiation looks like staying true to your values, your goals, your friendships, your path while still being loving and present. And high differentiation is wildly attractive. Let me give you a concrete example. You make plans with your friends, guys' night. You've been looking forward to it. She hints maybe directly or indirectly that she wishes you'd stay in. Maybe she's had a long week. Maybe she just wants you around. Most guys immediately cancel. They think I'm being a good boyfriend. I'm prioritizing her. She needs me. But what she actually registers emotionally, he doesn't have boundaries. He'll abandon what matters to him if I express any preference. He doesn't have a backbone. That's not strength. That's people-pleasing. And I can't respect that. Now contrast that with this. You say calmly and without defensiveness, "I'd love to spend time with you later this week, but I've committed to this and it matters to me. Let's plan something for tomorrow night. Just us." Calm, clear, no guilt, no over-explaining, no apology for having a life. What does that communicate? That you have a backbone. That your word means something. That you're not molding yourself into what you think she wants at the expense of what actually matters to you. And ironically, that makes her want you more because she doesn't want a man she can control. Deep down, that's not attractive. She wants a man she can respect, a man who knows who he is and doesn't need her permission to be that person. She wants you to stop playing it safe and start bringing edge. This is the one most people get catastrophically wrong. And it's the one that separates magnetic connection from polite, passionless companionship. Here's what I mean by edge. The willingness to create tension, to tease, to challenge, to not always be agreeable, to have opinions that might not perfectly align with hers, to push back playfully, to not be afraid of a little friction. Most men, especially the conscientious, empathetic, nice ones, are terrified of rocking the boat. They think attraction is built through comfort and agreeability. So, they nod along. They validate everything. They never disagree. They never challenge. They never create any friction whatsoever. And over time, the relationship flattens into something safe, predictable, comfortable in the worst way. Boring. But here's what the psychology shows. What the research on desire actually tells us. Desire requires polarity. And polarity requires tension. When you're always pleasant, always accommodating, always neutral, there's nothing for her to push against. No charge, no spark, no electricity, just pleasantness. And pleasantness is the death of passion. Women don't want to date their therapist. They don't want constant validation and agreement. They want to feel something. They want aliveness. They want a man who has edges, who has opinions, who doesn't just melt into whatever shape she needs that day. That doesn't mean being rude. It doesn't mean being in contrarian for the sake of it. It doesn't mean playing manipulative games. It means being willing to disagree authentically, to not laugh at a joke that isn't funny just to keep the peace, to call her out playfully when she's being ridiculous. It means having opinions, having standards, having a spine. Here's what this looks like in real life. She says, "I think I'm going to skip the gym again today. I'm just too tired." Most guys say, "That's totally fine. You've been really busy. You deserve a break." A guy with edge says with a slight smirk, "You say that every Monday. You're full of it. Come on, I'll go with you." It's playful. It's honest. It challenges her narrative without being mean. And it creates a moment of aliveness, a moment where she actually feels something other than being coddled. Or she says something you genuinely disagree with about politics, parenting, career choices, whatever. Instead of nodding along to avoid conflict, you say, "I don't see it that way at all. Here's why I think differently." Not aggressive, not dismissive, not condescending, just real, just honest. That friction, that's where attraction actually lives. Because deep down, she doesn't want a man who bends to her every mood, opinion, or passing whim. She wants someone who can stand firm in his own reality while still genuinely caring about hers. She wants polarity. She wants to feel your presence as something distinct, something she can orient herself against. She wants you to stop talking about your feelings and start embodying your presence. This is the most misunderstood principle of all, and it's the hill I'm willing to die on because it goes against everything modern dating culture preaches. Modern relationship culture tells men to be vulnerable, to share their emotions, to talk about their feelings openly and constantly, to process everything out loud. And look, emotional awareness is crucially important. I'm not advocating for stoic robots who never feel anything, but there's a version of this vulnerability that becomes weak. That becomes therapy sessions disguised as intimacy. That becomes emotional dumping disguised as connection. Here's the critical distinction. Women want emotional depth, not emotional dependency. There's a massive difference between a man who has processed his emotions internally, who's done the work, who can be present from a grounded, regulated place, versus a man who uses his partner as an emotional dumping ground because he hasn't done the inner work, because he doesn't have other outlets, because he needs her to constantly reassure him that he's okay. When you're constantly venting without filter, constantly seeking reassurance, constantly needing her to validate your emotions, fix your insecurities, or talk you off an emotional edge, you're putting her in the position of being your therapist or worse, your mother. And nobody wants to sleep with their mother. What she actually wants is a man who feels deeply but doesn't collapse under the weight of those feelings. A man who experiences anxiety but doesn't let it run his life. A man who has insecurities but doesn't need her to constantly patch them up. A man who processes his internal world so that when he shows up with her, he's actually present, not leaking unprocessed emotion everywhere. She wants you to do the work, to sit with your discomfort, to process it with a therapist, a mentor, a journal, your own reflection, your own practices, and then show up to her regulated, grounded, and emotionally available from a place of fullness, not neediness. Here's how this plays out practically. You're stressed about money. You're worried about your career. You're anxious about the future. Instead of unloading all of that onto her every single night, making her carry the emotional weight of your unprocessed anxiety, you handle it. You take action. You talk to someone actually equipped to help. You journal. You work out. You process. And when you're with her, you're actually with her. Present, grounded, not spiraling. That doesn't mean you're stoic. It doesn't mean you're closed off. It doesn't mean you don't share. It means you're not leaking unprocessed emotion all over the relationship, expecting her to mop it up. Because when she feels like she has to manage your emotional state, when she becomes responsible for keeping you stable, the dynamic shifts fundamentally. She becomes the caretaker, you become the project, you become another child. She has to manage, and desire dies completely in that role reversal. But when you can hold your own emotional world, when you can regulate yourself and still create generous space for her feelings, that's when she feels safe enough to truly surrender, to soften, to trust, to be fully feminine in your presence because you're holding the masculine polarity of groundedness. So, how do you actually live this? How do you integrate these principles into your daily life without it feeling forced or fake? It starts with brutal self-awareness. You have to notice your patterns. Notice when you're people-pleasing to avoid conflict. Notice when you're jumping to fix her emotions because you can't tolerate discomfort. Notice when you're seeking her approval before making basic decisions about your own life. Notice when you're using her as your only emotional outlet. And then practice the opposite. Not perfectly, not all at once, but intentionally. Practice staying calm when she's upset, not detached, not cold, calm, breathing, present. Practice saying no when you genuinely mean no, not defensively, not apologetically, clearly and kindly. Practice bringing playfulness and tension into your interactions. Teasing her, disagreeing when you actually disagree, not being mean, just being real. Practice handling your internal world so you can be fully, generously present in hers without needing her to fix you. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about waking up to the patterns that quietly kill attraction and choosing differently. And here's the thing, nobody tells you when you start doing this. When you start living these principles, you won't just notice a shift in how she responds to you. You'll notice a profound shift in how you feel about yourself. Because this isn't really about attraction techniques. It's about becoming a man who doesn't need external validation to feel whole. A man who knows who he is and doesn't apologize for it. A man who can hold space for others because he's solid in himself. And that's magnetic, not just to her, to everyone. If this resonated with you and you want to go deeper into the psychology of attraction, presence, and masculine groundedness, I've put together a free guide that breaks down these principles in even more detail with specific practices you can start today. It's called the Grounded Man's Guide to Emotional Presence. And it walks you through exactly how to embody these principles in real-world situations, how to handle conflict, how to create polarity, how to be emotionally available without being emotionally dependent. You can grab it in the description below. No email list nonsense, no upsell, just genuine support for the path you're already on. Here's what I want you to take away from this entire conversation. Attraction isn't about tricks. It's not about manipulation or games. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not or following some script. It's about understanding the emotional undercurrents that most people never talk about. The gap between what sounds good logically and what actually creates desire emotionally. Women don't want you to be perfect. They don't want some flawless robot who never makes mistakes. They want you to be grounded, to be real, to be someone who can hold space without needing to control everything. Someone who has his own life, his own purpose, his own center of gravity. And when you become that man, everything changes. Not just in your relationships, not just with women, in your entire life. You show up differently at work, in friendships, in how you relate to yourself because you've stopped seeking constant validation and started living from a place of internal solidity. If this video helped you see something differently, if something clicked, hit subscribe. Drop a comment below and let me know which of these 4 principles hit hardest for you. Which one are you going to work on first? And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's struggling in relationships despite doing everything right, send it to them.